Are you an empath who sometimes connects too fast romantically and emotionally and thinks it's because there's something wrong with you or your attachment style? There may not be, and I'm going to explain why in this video. My name is Adam and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Before we get started, please of course like and subscribe, and I want to let you know I'm doing free breakthrough calls. There is a link pinned in the comment section below. A breakthrough call is a 30-minute call where we get on Zoom and we go over your mission for your life. Your mission, your purpose, what you're inspired to create. If you don't know, I help you find some of the blocks that are in the way of you creating the life that you want to have, and then some steps that you can take to really iron all that out and be set on your right path. Now, empaths and romantic attachment. This is a very interesting topic. Now, I'm sure if you're an empath, you've done some research into romantic attachment and attachment styles. If not, there's plenty of videos you can watch out there. There's secure attachment, there's anxious attachment, there's avoidant attachment, there's some others. Those are the main ones. I'm not going to get too much into that in this video, but I will quickly address anxious attachment style because it is very common for empaths. Anxious attachment style happens generally when we grow up in an environment that is inconsistent. So if your mother or your father, probably your mother, but either one or both, were very kind of on-off or hot-cold, or you had to walk on eggshells around them. Either they were abusive or they were just 1 minute like really positive and happy and the next moment like not there, or you were in trouble all the time and you didn't know why. This tends to create an anxious attachment style. And what that means is like you attach really quickly because you want the love, but then you're always insecure that you're going to lose it. And anytime anyone kind of drifts away a little bit, you feel like everything's over and you did something horribly wrong, which goes back to the dynamic with your mother as a child. And that is definitely something that many people, struggle with. There's nothing wrong with it, but it can be improved and overcome, and you can become secure to where you just love yourself enough to be cool whether the person likes you or not. That's the gist of anxious attachment style. A lot of empaths have that because a lot of empaths develop their kind of empathic abilities through trauma, through being hyper aware, through, their environment being unstable, etc. That, however, is not the main topic of this video. What I want to talk about in this video is a whole other element that I don't see very often discussed out there, that's a little more other dimensional, that comes into play when empaths attach, particularly romantically, but in basically any form of a relationship. And one of the things that tends to happen is if we attach too quickly, or if we attach a lot, or if we feel very strong feelings for somebody kind of ever, but especially kind of soon, we usually, if we're a little bit aware of ourselves, think there's something wrong with us. We'll come back to being like, oh, I'm codependent, I'm attachy, I'm anxious, I'm way too much. And if you're empathic, that might not be what's going on. So what is going on? What is going on? Because there's the phenomena out there that we need to be aware of. I'm going to get into what it is, and I'm going to get into what you can do about it, okay? So one of the things that happens with empaths is we have different levels of sort of psychic and intuitive abilities. Some are very far along on their path. Some are not as far along on their path, but they're still kind of there underneath the surface, operating energetically. And this can lead us to connect really quickly to people, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. So before I get into this any further, I want to explain how men and women tend to connect romantically because it's important. And then I'm going to explain the empath thing. So men tend to connect to women first physically. They connect first physically, then they connect emotionally, then they connect mentally. Women tend, there's always exceptions, but they tend to go the other way, mentally, emotionally, physically. Now this can lead guys to get a really bad rap, right? Because it can lead, into that perception that a lot of women have of men of just wanting to fuck. And I'm not saying those men aren't out there. They most certainly are. There are plenty of super shallow, superficial, narcissistic dudes out there, women too, though, who are just looking to have sex, don't give a fuck about you emotionally. That's true, but a lot of times men who just want to connect physically first aren't that kind of person. And I want to explain why that happens. So what happens is because women This is my take on it. I've gotten a lot of this from John Gray too, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and some other researchers, and I find it to be accurate. A lot of times women are more connected to their bodies, right? They're just more connected to their emotions, more connected to their intuition. So the emotional nature comes a little bit more naturally. Feeling their bodies comes a little bit more naturally. If you think historically about what men have been through on the planet, wars, really, difficult, arduous jobs like roofing and fucking building the houses and, carrying bricks up fucking skyscrapers, whatever it is they've done. I'm not saying women haven't had it insanely difficult too. What that's led is men tend, because of that, they tend to be more disconnected. They don't feel their bodies as much, and they tend to be more in their heads and more analytical, which is kind of more the masculine energy, right? It's directive, it's specific, it's analytical, it's not as free-flowing, feminine, and open. The goal is for us all to become whole beings. We all have masculine and feminine dynamics in us, but this tends to be where men are coming from. So in order for men to feel their emotions, a lot of times it comes through their sexual energy first. So they're attracted physically and they want to have sex, not so much always because they're just shallow and sex is all that matters and they're just out for the conquest, though of course that's true too, but because when they have sex and they physicalize it, they then start to feel something. Now, that doesn't mean this is the best way to do it. It doesn't mean we don't want to evolve. We are. This is just kind of how it's been. So if women, you can understand that a lot of men are this is just how they're wired and they're learning. It might be, you might not write some of them off as quickly just because they have an impulse to have sex, is what I'm saying. So they connect through their bodies, they feel the sexual energy, and then their heart starts to open, and then they start to have feelings for somebody. And then as they start to have feelings for somebody, then they go into their mind and they're like, well, maybe I could actually be with this person. Maybe I could marry her and have kids and we could live in a house together. And they start analyzing it and building the vision and the story. Now, women tend to go the other way. They kind of see the guy, or they talk to the guy, or they hear the guy. They're attracted to maybe his intelligence, maybe to his mind, maybe who he is, like the image of them together, like in their mental nature. And they're like, oh, I like this guy. Of course, there's a physical attraction too, of course. But women will do this mentally. And then as they like the vision, they like the guy mentally, they start to open their hearts more. They start to maybe open, emotionally, maybe and as they start to do that and feel more of a connection to him and trust him, they feel more safe. And as they feel more safe, then they feel like ready to connect physically and have sex. That tends to be how it is. Now, the thing though, is empaths, from my experience, do it a little differently, especially super empaths. And this is something that's directed more for women, but for me, as a male like empath, I had to learn this the hard way on my own. I don't connect first physically. I don't connect first mentally, and I don't connect first emotionally. I connect first energetically. And I think this is true for most empaths. We connect first energetically. We feel the person's energy. We're like, oh, I like their energy. For me, I've always kind of had a connection between my sexual energy and my heart. I had somebody point this out. One session I did with them, they're just like, your sexual energy is connected to your heart. That's very rare for a male. And I know that. I have never been the kind of guy who will just fuck someone because they're hot. Like, I've had women that were attractive that I had no emotional connection to, and I've turned the sex down because it doesn't mean anything to me. I also have had a tendency to have to wait a little bit before I know if I'm physically attracted, even if the person's very pretty, because I have to feel it. But I feel it through the energetics. Now, this can be a major gift, and it can also be a major problem. The reason it can be a problem is because what's going on energetically isn't always what's going on in 3D on the human plane. Also, because we connect energetically, and within the energetics comes like memories of past lives, memories of relationship dynamics you've had with this soul or energetic in other times and places, we can then go into a fantasy or an other time reality that's not a reality now about the dynamic. We also can attach immediately because we remember them, but they may not remember us. And so what can happen there is it can come off very attachy. It can come off very anxious. It can come off very codependent, but that's not necessarily what's happening. An analogy I like to use is this. So let's say, you have an intense attraction, an emotional attraction to somebody that you just met, right? And you feel a little bit like, am I weird? Am I off for this? Like, am I broken inside? Think of it like this. Imagine you had a best friend, okay? You had a best friend that you grew up with in childhood. You spent, weekends at their house. They spent weekends at your house. You went on family vacations with them. They went on family vacations with you. You spoke every day or almost every day. You had this very deep friend connection, one of your best friends in the world. Then maybe you're 18, 19, it doesn't matter how old, it's just an analogy. They move away. They move to another state, they move to another country, whatever. You don't see them anymore. And maybe you talk to them, but not a whole lot. Not like it used to be. 7 years goes by, 8 years goes by, whatever. They're coming back. Maybe they're moving back, maybe they're just coming to visit, right? You go to the airport, all excited, you wait for them to get off the plane and come out, and you see them and you run up to them and you give them a giant hug and you're like, oh my God, I love you. I miss you so much. It's so good to see you. You're kind of all over them. Now, there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing unhealthy, nothing weird, nothing anxious, nothing codependent about that whatsoever. However, if your friend completely forgot who the fuck you were, you would look like a goddamn psycho, right? They'd be like, oh my God, who is this fucking crazy bitch or this crazy dude all over me, grubbing me and touching me? Get the fuck away. What is wrong with you? You codependent, psychotic, crazy person, okay? Now, this is very tricky to navigate as an empath because we have these memories. And we want to just go up to these people and give them this big hug and be like, I remember you, I love you, and they don't necessarily remember us. And sometimes, maybe it's not someone you remember from a past life, but because you're so sensitive energetically, you just kind of connect to their soul. And you just like their soul. And on a soul level, there's no oh, I need to get to know you and I need to wait and stay back over there. It's just instant love. But still, again, now this person, this human, doesn't know you yet. And what it can lead to is a lot of pain, a lot of feelings of rejection, and a lot of confusion because we don't know what's going on. And what we tend to do then is we take it internally and we think it's because there's something wrong with us. And there's not in this instance. And I'm not saying you don't necessarily have anxious attachment style 2 or that's not something you want to look at. It may be. But this is something different. And it's important to know this. So what do you do? What do you do with this knowledge? What do you do when you have this tendency to just connect to people in this whole other way? Well, it requires a very important lesson, which is the lesson of discernment, for one, patience, surrender, and letting go. You can't shut off the fact that you have this awareness. You can't shut off these feelings that you have for this person. And you definitely don't want to think there's something wrong with you when there's not. But what you do want to do is recognize that they may not have this awareness yet, or they may not be in a place yet where they can connect with you like this. I've had this happen many times, particularly in romantic dynamics, where I just remembered someone instantly and I had to wait and see that they were not on that level yet. They didn't remember me, or they were way, way, way too traumatized to connect to me like that. And it was very sad and very hard. And it's caused me a lot of pain in my life. But it's very important to understand that this is something that happens. And so what you want to do is wait. You want to kind of gauge where they're at. And if they're not giving you that response back, understand that they don't maybe remember you on that level yet. Now, sometimes what will happen is if you pull back and you kind of mirror them and you see how they're responding to you and you respond back accordingly, they'll come around, or that remembrance will kind of come up energetically over time, or you'll redevelop a new connection. and everything will work out. Sometimes that won't happen. Sometimes they won't remember you. They won't be in that place. In which case, it's just about acceptance. It's about accepting that this soul is on this journey this time and I'm on this journey this time, and it's too bad. It was nice to see them, but we got to go. Sometimes also what happens here, I've talked about this in other videos, is you presume, because you have these memories that you don't necessarily consciously remember, that this is a romantic person for you because they were before, but they're not now. So it's really important when you connect on this level to kind of hone in on the 3D and look at, okay, what's going on down here on the fucking ground? This is where limerence comes in a lot. This is where fantasy love comes in a lot, because we like go off into the imagination and the other realms. They're true, they're real, but it's not what's going on the ground right now. So give it some space, give it some time, and step back. Pull back your energy and use it as an opportunity to just build that love more within yourself, to build that connection more within yourself, and to let them be where they are. Also, sometimes this is just how we're wired, and even amongst empaths, some of us can connect more intimately, more quickly than others. Like, for example, just for me personally, in human design, I have the 59-6 channel. And what that says is my aura or whatever is very easily able to like quickly, intimately connect to the right people. So I'm very good at just filtering out those that don't work for me like instantly. And the ones that do, I can just go very quickly with. But other people aren't like that. Even empaths aren't necessarily like that. So I have to watch it. I just have to work on not being too much and understanding that I have this ability and other people don't necessarily. Also, when you've healed more than others, sometimes they might feel the connection to you, but if your frequency is higher and you're more healed, you will kind of tend to trigger them a little bit. And so they, even though they may have the connection, have to kind of step back and kind of let some of this stuff dissolve before they can sort of match where you're at energetically, or they're going to feel overwhelmed. And it's important in these situations to definitely pull back and let go, because it's like you don't want to need it too much. You know, you want to just be sovereign and free and independent, but you also don't want to beat yourself up because you may not really be doing anything wrong. The other thing is, you know, I don't know about women particularly, but I know men can tend to be ready to be intimate quicker simply because we historically don't have the phenomena of having to worry about safety. You know, we just like a little bit, but not like women. Obviously not like women. Like most men don't walk into women's apartments going like, am I safe here? You know, so it takes women longer too, even empathic women. These are just other things to point out. Something else that you can do, and I've spoken about this in other videos, is ask to have any of your past life and karmic history healed, cleared, or neutralized. You can just ask your higher self to do this for the highest good of all. So ask to have your past life, karmic history, past life connections upgraded, healed, and neutralized for the highest good of all, so that some of these energetic pulls that happen with these people can calm down and balance, so you're not so like all over the place in the energetics. Another thing you can do is start to really focus on your physical body. Call your energy into your physical body, into your nervous system, and really use it as an opportunity to ground and to set your own boundaries. Because one of the reasons this happens, and it's not a bad thing, but empaths, we tend to be so interconnected, we get too swept up in the other person's energetics. Now that doesn't mean you can't connect energetically. You have an ability to connect energetically. We're all connected energetically. You're not going to ever be able to just shut that off, nor do you want to. But you do want to understand where your physical body boundaries come in and where theirs come in, so that we're not always just instantly completely being entangled with another person's essence. And the other thing that I suggest with this is to use this very deeply to understand what I started off saying at the beginning, and that is there's nothing wrong with you. The way we heal anything is through self-love and compassion. So like even if you have an anxious attachment style, When we start to go, oh, I have an anxious attachment style. Oh, I'm codependent. Oh, I'm fucked up. Oh, I attach too fast. Oh, I'm too much. Like, you do want an awareness of that, because you can't really heal a problem if you don't know what it is. But when we start to like beat ourselves up over it, we're kind of just perpetuating the anxious attachment wound. Because the way you heal the anxious attachment wound is to give yourself the love that you didn't get as a child. And when we start hitting ourselves like that, we're not doing that. So when you can reframe any story to something that means there's not anything wrong with you, you're actually beginning to give yourself the love that you didn't get, that will help you heal all the wounds that you have. So by understanding, like, oh, I'm just psychic. Oh, I'm just empathic. Oh, these are gifts. Oh, I remember this person. Oh, I have love for this person. That's all the great thing. There's nothing wrong with me, but I do need to let them go and love them for who they are now, and understand that I'm okay and I'm going to be okay. And there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not a codependent mess. I have a gift. I just have to learn how to use it. So I would like you to please let me know what you think of this phenomena. Please let me know in the comments. Let me know if you have any revelations, breakthroughs. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I have a free energy clearing in the description below. Other than that, I thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and I will see you later.